If your fasting number keeps climbing, no matter how many carbs you cut out, the problem was never the carbs. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to walk you through has changed the numbers for hundreds of people who thought they'd already tried everything. Most people believe the fastest way to bring down blood sugar is to take food away. Cut the bread, cut the rice, cut the fruit, cut it all out, and white-knuckle your way through. I want to tell you something different, and it's something almost nobody explains clearly. The fastest way to bring your blood sugar down isn't about elimination. It's about addition. It's about which foods you start putting on your plate, not which ones you're terrified of touching. My name is Dr. William Hart, and I've spent years sitting across from people just like you. People who walk into my office holding a printout of their glucose readings like it's a report card they're ashamed of. I've watched patients turn their numbers around in a matter of days, not months, simply by adding specific foods into meals they were already eating. And here's the part that matters even more. It isn't a temporary trick. Many of these same people are still off medication a year, 2 years later, because what we did wasn't patch the symptom. It went underneath it. Here's what almost nobody tells you in a rushed 12-minute appointment. High blood sugar rarely starts in your blood. It starts with a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to knock on the door of your cells and let sugar move out of your bloodstream and into the cell, where your body can actually use it for energy. When your blood sugar has been riding a roller coaster for years, your cells stop answering that knock. We call this insulin resistance. Your pancreas responds by producing even more insulin, trying to knock louder, and your blood sugar climbs anyway. The usual next step is another prescription, and that prescription pushes even more insulin into a system already struggling to keep up. That isn't anyone being careless with you. It's just that a short office visit doesn't leave room to explain how food talks directly to your insulin receptors. So today, I will. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 specific foods. Each one does one of 3 things inside your body. It slows down how fast sugar enters your bloodstream. It calms the quiet inflammation that's been making your cells ignore insulin in the first place. Or it helps wake that insulin receptor back up, so your own body starts doing the job it was built to do. You don't need to start all 10 tomorrow morning. Add them in slowly, one at a time, over the next couple of weeks, and let them stack. Before I get into the first food, I want to ask you something, because it genuinely shapes what I bring you in future videos. If you've been checking your fasting number in the morning and it's been higher than you'd like, tell me what it was this week down in the comments. I read every single one, and honestly, the numbers you share tell me exactly what to cover next. And if this is the kind of video where you want the why behind your health, instead of just being handed a pill and sent out the door, this channel is going to be a good home for you. Go ahead and subscribe while you're here. It helps more than you'd think. Now, there's something I haven't told a lot of people watching this, and I think you need to hear it before we go any further. Most of these 10 foods aren't just helpful on their own. There's a specific order and combination that made the biggest difference for the patients whose numbers came down fastest. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looked like for one woman whose story genuinely surprised even me. But first, let's start with food number 1, because this one is sitting in almost every grocery store spice aisle, and almost nobody reaches for it. The first food is fenugreek seed. These are small, hard, amber-colored seeds, and you'll usually find them in the spice aisle for just a couple of dollars. If you've never heard of it, or it sounds a little exotic for your kitchen, don't skip past it. This quiet little seed is one of the more effective blood sugar tools sitting on a shelf, and it costs less than a cup of coffee. Here's what's actually happening when you eat it. Fenugreek is rich in a soluble fiber. When that fiber meets water in your stomach, it swells up into a thick gel. That gel physically slows down how quickly carbohydrates move out of your stomach and into your small intestine. When sugar enters your bloodstream slowly instead of all at once, there's no spike, and there's no panicked flood of insulin trying to catch up. On top of that, fenugreek contains a natural compound that helps your body release insulin more efficiently and helps your muscles take up glucose more easily. In my own practice, I've watched fasting numbers start to shift within just a week or 2 of adding this in consistently. To use it, take about a teaspoon of the whole seeds and let them soak overnight in a glass of water. In the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the slightly bitter taste isn't for you, you can grind them and stir a small amount into yogurt or sprinkle it over eggs. Start with a smaller amount than you think you need. This fiber is strong, and your gut deserves a few days to adjust to it. Food number 2 is cinnamon, and you almost certainly already have some in your cupboard right now. But here's what most people get wrong. The type matters, and most grocery store cinnamon is the wrong kind. The common variety is called cassia, and it contains a compound that isn't ideal in large daily amounts over time. The one worth looking for is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. It's gentler, it's better suited for everyday use, and it's the one I point my own patients toward. What makes cinnamon useful here is a group of natural plant compounds that behave a little like insulin itself. They help your insulin receptors grip onto glucose more effectively, and they help slow how quickly your stomach empties after a meal. Some research in adults with type 2 diabetes has found that even a modest daily amount of cinnamon was linked with meaningfully lower fasting glucose readings. That's a real, measurable effect from something already sitting in most kitchens. Use around 1/4 to a half teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon a day, stirred into oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie. The best time to use it is alongside a meal that includes carbohydrates, since that's exactly the moment you want your receptors gripping harder and your stomach slowing down. Third on the list is broccoli sprouts, and I want you to pay close attention here, because this is one of the most underused foods on this entire list. Not full-grown broccoli, the tiny, few-day-old sprouts. Miss that distinction, and you miss almost the entire benefit. These little sprouts carry a compound in far higher concentration than mature broccoli does, and it does something none of the other foods on this list quite do. It travels to your liver and helps quiet down what I call your overnight glucose factory. Your liver naturally produces some sugar while you sleep, but with insulin resistance, it often produces far too much, which is exactly why so many people wake up to a high fasting number, even though they haven't eaten a single bite all night. Some research groups studying concentrated versions of this compound have found meaningful drops in fasting blood sugar, with the strongest benefits showing up in people whose numbers were hardest to control. You can grow broccoli sprouts yourself in a jar on your counter for pennies, or find them in the produce section of most grocery stores. A small handful on a salad or sandwich most days is plenty. Try to eat them raw or only barely wilted, since heat can break down the active compound. So far, every one of these foods has done quiet, steady work, slowing sugar down or waking a sleepy receptor back up. And we're only 3 foods in. What comes next is where things start to change the actual meals you're already eating every day. Number 4 is the avocado, and this is one people avoid for the wrong reason. A lot of folks think of it as a fat to steer clear of because of the calorie count, and honestly, that fear is costing them more than it's protecting them. The fat in an avocado is a monounsaturated fat, the same family found in olive oil, and it happens to be one of the more blood sugar-friendly foods you can put on a plate. Here's why it works. The healthy fat and fiber in an avocado slow your entire meal down. When you add half an avocado to a plate of rice or a slice of toast, you're not removing the carbohydrate. You're putting a gentle brake on how quickly it turns into blood sugar. The glucose rises gradually instead of spiking. Over time, this type of fat has also been linked with improved insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond to insulin's knock a little more readily. In my experience, this is one of the easiest habits to stick with, because it makes a meal more satisfying, and people stop reaching for a snack an hour later out of habit. Half an avocado a day is a sensible amount for most people. Put it on eggs in the morning, mash it onto whole grain toast, or add it to a salad that already includes a starch. Wherever there's a carbohydrate on the plate, an avocado softens the landing. Food 5 is chia seeds. These tiny gray and black seeds punch well above their size. If you've ever watched chia sit in liquid and turn into a pudding-like texture, you've already seen exactly how it behaves in your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy, and when it meets water in your stomach, it forms that same thick gel we talked about with fenugreek. That gel wraps around the carbohydrates in a meal and slows their absorption down. The sugar releases steadily instead of in a rush, which helps you avoid both the spike and the crash that leaves you shaky and hungry an hour later. Chia also carries a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm low-grade inflammation, and calming that inflammation is part of how cells start listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is enough to make a difference. Stir it into yogurt, drop it into a glass of water with a little lemon, or blend it into a smoothie. Give it about 10 minutes to gel before drinking it, and make sure you're getting enough water throughout the day, since fiber like this needs plenty of liquid to move comfortably. Number 6 is fatty fish, salmon, and mackerel specifically. This one works a little differently than the others. It doesn't slow a meal down. It goes after the deeper issue. The reason your cells stopped listening to insulin in the first place. A significant driver of insulin resistance is chronic, quiet inflammation. When your body carries that kind of inflammation for years, it interferes with how the insulin signal reaches the surface of your cells. Salmon and mackerel are rich in two particular omega-3 fats known to be among the more powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds we understand. They help calm that inflammatory signal, support a healthier cell membrane, and let the insulin receptor start doing its job the way it's meant to. In my years of practice, patients who eat fatty fish a couple of times a week tend to have steadier numbers overall. Aim for 2 servings a week, roughly the size of your palm each time. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring all work well. Bake it, grill it, or keep canned versions on hand if that's easier on your schedule or your budget. Canned mackerel and sardines are some of the most affordable, powerful foods on this entire list. Before we move to the next 4, I want to tell you something. There's one food coming up on this list that surprised even me the first time I saw how strongly it worked for a patient of mine, and I'm going to share her story with you in just a few minutes, because I think you'll see yourself in parts of it. 7th is walnuts. Of all the nuts, this is the one I point my patients toward first, because of what it does for both the lining of your blood vessels and your insulin at the same time. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat, along with the same plant-based omega-3 found in chia seeds. That fat supports the health of your endothelium, the thin lining inside your blood vessels, which is one of the first things affected by high blood sugar over time. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts helps blunt the rise in blood sugar after a meal, and some research has linked regular walnut intake with lower fasting insulin levels. That's the number that tells you how hard your pancreas has been working. Try a small handful as a snack in place of crackers or a cookie, and you've taken what would have been a sharp spike and turned it into something closer to a flat, steady line. A small handful is roughly a quarter cup, or about 7 to 10 whole walnuts. Keep them plain or dry roasted rather than candied or honey-coated, and use them to replace a processed snack rather than adding them on top of one. Number 8 is the whole egg, yolk included. For years, people were told to avoid the yolk, and that advice pushed a lot of people towards sugary cereal instead, which did far more damage to their blood sugar than the yolk ever would have. Let me set the record straight. A whole egg is almost entirely protein and fat, with barely any carbohydrate, so on its own it moves your blood sugar very little. But the real benefit is something doctors sometimes call the second meal effect. When you start your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal, your blood sugar tends to stay steadier, not just through breakfast, but all the way to lunch. You walk into your next meal calmer, with a smaller rise afterward. The protein and fat also keep you fuller longer, which quietly takes the edge off those mid-morning cravings. 2 or 3 whole eggs in the morning is a solid target for most people. Scramble them, boil a batch ahead for the week, or fold in some spinach. Add that avocado from earlier right on top, and you've built a strong, steady breakfast. Now, here's something I want to say clearly and directly, because it matters more than almost anything else in this video. If you are on insulin or on an older class of blood sugar medication, these foods can bring your numbers down fast enough that your current dose may suddenly be too strong for you, and that can push your sugar too low. So please, bring this list to your doctor and let them adjust your medication alongside you as your body starts to improve. Never stop or change a prescription on your own. This isn't about replacing your doctor. It's about giving both of you more to work with. If everything you've heard so far has been useful to you, do something simple for me. Like this video. And if you know someone in your life quietly struggling with the same numbers, a parent, a spouse, a friend, send this to them. This is exactly the kind of thing nobody sits people down and explains clearly, and it might be the video that changes things for someone you care about. Number 9 is apple cider vinegar. And out of everything on this list, this is the one you can watch work almost the same day if you have a glucose meter at home. The active ingredient is acetic acid, and it does 2 things. It slows down how quickly your stomach empties, so carbohydrates enter your bloodstream more gradually, and it helps your muscles pull glucose out of the blood to use as fuel. Some research on vinegar taken before a carbohydrate-heavy meal has shown a noticeable reduction in the after-meal blood sugar rise in people with insulin resistance, a meaningful effect from something that costs only a few dollars a bottle. A tablespoon diluted in a full glass of water, taken 10 to 15 minutes before a meal with carbohydrates, is the general approach. Always dilute it. Never take it straight. since the acid can be hard on tooth, enamel, and the throat. And again, if you're already on any blood sugar medication, check with your doctor first, since vinegar alongside certain medications can bring your sugar down faster than expected. One food left to go, and it might be the most surprising one on this entire list, because it isn't something you'd expect to see in a video about lowering blood sugar at all. The 10th food is lentils, and this one proves the whole point of everything we've covered today. Lentils are a carbohydrate, and they will still help lower your blood sugar. Here's how that works. Lentils combine a slow-digesting starch with soluble fiber and a solid dose of plant protein. That combination means the natural sugar inside a lentil releases into your blood slowly and steadily over hours, instead of all at once. Lentils carry that same second meal effect we talked about with eggs, so a bowl of lentil soup at lunch can help keep your numbers steadier well into the evening. Clinically, swapping white rice or white potato for lentils a few times a week is one of the more reliable ways to help bring down an A1C, your average blood sugar reading over the past 3 months. Aim for about half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils a few times a week. Use them in a soup, a stew, or a cold salad with a little olive oil and a splash of that vinegar we just covered. They're filling, inexpensive, and stretch a meal further than almost anything else on this list. Now, let me tell you about a woman I'll call Donna, because her story is the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place. Donna was in her early 60s, recently retired, and came to see me frightened. Her fasting number had been sitting around 180, and her doctor had just told her it was time to add a second medication. She didn't want to spend the rest of her life climbing that ladder, and she was scared because she'd watched her own mother go through the same disease, and it hadn't ended gently. We didn't take her carbohydrates away. We added things in. Eggs and avocado in the morning instead of cereal. A tablespoon of diluted vinegar before her larger meals. Lentils in place of the white rice she used to make every night. Walnuts instead of her usual afternoon cookie. Fatty fish twice a week. Cinnamon stirred into her coffee. Broccoli sprouts on her lunchtime sandwich. Within the first week, her fasting numbers had already started coming down. Within 3 months, working closely with her own doctor the whole way, she came off that second medication entirely, and her A1C moved from the diabetic range back toward a healthy one. 2 years later, it has held steady. She didn't starve herself for any of it. She simply ate more of the right things, and her body did the rest of the work on its own. So let me tie all 10 of these together, because this is exactly why they work when cutting carbs alone so often fails. Every single one of these foods hands your insulin its job back without starving you in the process. The fiber-rich foods slow glucose down so your pancreas never has to panic. The fish, the walnuts, and the chia cool the inflammation that had been jamming the signal in the first place. The cinnamon and the vinegar walk right up to the insulin receptor and help it start gripping again. Do this meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that had stopped answering the door slowly begins opening it again on the very first knock. That is what it actually means to support your body's own insulin sensitivity at a deeper level. And once that shift happens, your body tends to hold your numbers down on its own, which is exactly why Donna's numbers stayed steady for 2 full years and counting. There's one more piece I haven't shared with you yet, and it's the part that ties this entire video together into something you can actually put into practice starting tonight. Here's what I'd suggest doing in 5 simple steps, starting tomorrow. First, tomorrow morning, replace your usual cereal or toast with 2 or 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap alone changes the shape of your blood sugar for the rest of the day. Second, tonight, soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water and drink it first thing in the morning. Third, pick up Ceylon cinnamon rather than the common cassia variety and start with a 1/4 teaspoon a day in your coffee or oatmeal. Fourth, before your largest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water about 15 minutes ahead of time. Fifth, sometime this week, swap white rice or potato for lentils at least twice and put fatty fish on the menu for 2 nights. You don't need to do all of this at once. Stack these in gradually over the next couple of weeks. You are not taking away the foods you love. You are adding in the foods that quietly protect you, meal by meal, day by day. If there's one thing I want you to walk away from this video believing, it's this. Your body was never broken. It was simply waiting for the right signals to start listening again. Insulin resistance isn't a life sentence, and it isn't a personal failing. It's a conversation between your cells and a hormone that got interrupted somewhere along the way, and food is one of the clearest ways to restart that conversation. I've watched it happen for Donna,